She walked into that courtroom holding a baby. His baby. And everything stopped. Damien Cross built an empire on control. He wanted the divorce. He wanted her gone. He wanted everything she had left. But when Arya stood before him with their son in her arms, a child he never knew existed, the most powerful man in the city realized he'd lost the only thing that ever mattered. She hid his son for a year. He destroyed her trust long before that. Now, the war between them isn't about money. It's about a love that never died, and a truth that changes everything. The courtroom smelled like old wood and expensive cologne. Damien Cross sat at the polished table, his tailored suit sharp enough to cut, his jaw set like stone. Across from him, his lawyer shuffled papers with mechanical efficiency. Everything was going according to plan. The divorce would be finalized today. Arya would walk away with nothing. He'd made sure of it. She'd signed a prenup. She had no claim to his fortune, his properties, his legacy. She was entitled to nothing but the memory of a marriage that had died long before the papers were filed. Damien didn't feel guilt. He felt closure. The heavy doors at the back of the courtroom creaked open. Arya stepped inside, and everything stopped. She wasn't alone. In her arms, wrapped in a soft blue blanket, was a baby. A little boy, no more than a year old, his tiny hand clutching the fabric of her dress, his dark hair, his sharp eyes, Damien's eyes. The air left his lungs. His lawyer froze mid-sentence. The judge looked up, confused. But Damien couldn't hear anything anymore. Not the shuffling papers, not the whispered confusion, not even his own heartbeat. Just her, and the child. Arya walked down the aisle slowly, her heels echoing against the marble floor. She didn't look afraid. She didn't look broken. She looked like a woman who had carried the weight of the world alone, and survived. Her gaze met his. Cold, steady, unforgiving. She stopped a few feet away from him, adjusting the baby gently against her chest. The boy blinked sleepily, his little fingers curling around her necklace. "You wanted everything," Arya said quietly, her voice cutting through the silence like a blade. "So here it is. Everything you didn't know you had." Damien couldn't move. His lawyer leaned over, whispering urgently, "Mr. Cross, do you know this child?" He didn't answer, because the truth was staring back at him with his own face. The baby yawned, tiny and perfect and impossibly real. Arya's hand cradled his head protectively, like she'd been doing it for a lifetime. "This is Elijah," she said, her voice softer now, but no less fierce. "Your son." The words hit him like a freight train. "Your son." Damien's throat tightened, his hands clenched into fists on the table. He wanted to speak, to demand answers, to scream, but nothing came out. Arya shifted Elijah in her arms, her expression unreadable. "I didn't come here to ask for anything. I came here so you'd know, so you'd understand what you were really walking away from." The judge cleared his throat, visibly uncomfortable. "Ms. Bennett, this is highly irregular." "I know," Arya interrupted, her eyes never leaving Damien's. "But he deserves to see what he's been too blind to notice for the past year." Damien finally found his voice. It came out rough, barely controlled. "You hid him from me." "I protected him from you," she corrected sharply. Silence. The room felt smaller, heavier. Damien stood slowly, his chair scraping against the floor. His lawyer grabbed his arm, but he shrugged him off. He stepped closer to Arya, his gaze locked on the baby, on Elijah. The boy looked at him with wide, curious eyes. Innocent. Unaware of the storm he'd just unleashed. "How long?" Damien's voice cracked, just barely. "How long have you been hiding him?" Arya's jaw tightened. since the day I realized what kind of man you'd become." Her words were a dagger. He wanted to be angry. He wanted to feel betrayed. But all he felt was the crushing weight of everything he'd lost without ever knowing it. "You had no right." "I had every right," Arya snapped, her voice rising. "You were too busy destroying everything we built to notice I was pregnant, Damien. You chose your empire over me, over us. So I chose him." Elijah whimpered softly, and Arya immediately softened, rocking him gently. "Shh, baby. It's okay." Damien watched her. The way she held him. The way she whispered comfort, like it was second nature. She'd been a mother, alone, and he'd been nothing. His lawyer tried again. "Mr. Cross, we should request a DNA test." "No," Damien said flatly. Everyone looked at him. He stared at Elijah, at the shape of his nose, the curve of his mouth, the way his little hand reached out instinctively, grasping at the air. "He's mine," Damien said quietly. "I know he's mine." Arya's expression flickered, just for a second, with something that might have been pain. The judge sighed heavily. "This complicates matters significantly. I'll need to adjourn." "No," Arya said firmly. She looked at Damien one last time, her eyes shining with something between grief and fury. "You wanted the divorce. You wanted me gone. So here's your chance. Sign the papers, take your empire, and walk away." She turned toward the door. Damien's hand shot out, catching her wrist. "Wait." The word came out desperate. Arya froze. She didn't turn around. "Please," he whispered. Her shoulders trembled. Just once. Then she pulled her arm free and walked out of the courtroom, Elijah's soft breaths the only sound left behind. Damien stood there, staring at the empty doorway, his entire world collapsing around him. He'd thought he had everything. He'd just realized he had nothing. Damien didn't sign the papers. He left the courthouse in silence, his lawyer trailing behind him with frantic questions that went unanswered. The city blurred past the tinted windows of his car, but Damien saw none of it. All he saw was Elijah, his son, a child he didn't know existed until an hour ago. His driver glanced at him through the rearview mirror. "Where to, Mr. Cross?" Damien's jaw tightened. "Find her." "Sir? Find Arya Bennett. I don't care what it takes." The driver nodded and made a call. Within 30 minutes, Damien had an address. Arya lived in a small apartment on the edge of the city, far from the penthouse they used to share. The building was old but clean, the kind of place where people worked hard and kept their heads down. Damien stood outside her door, his fist hovering over the wood. He didn't know what he was going to say. He knocked. Silence. Then footsteps. The door opened a crack, the chain lock still in place. Arya's face appeared, her expression cold and guarded. "Go away, Damien. I need to talk to you." "There's nothing to talk about." "There's everything to talk about," he said, his voice low and strained. "You kept my son from me." Her eyes flashed with anger. "And you would have done what, exactly? Raised him between board meetings and criminal deals? Taught him how to destroy people?" Damien flinched. "That's what I thought," Arya said bitterly. She moved to close the door. "Please." His hand pressed flat against the wood, stopping her. "Just let me see him." Arya hesitated. Behind her, Elijah cooed softly from somewhere inside the apartment. Her shoulders sagged. "Just a little. 5 minutes," she said finally. She unhooked the chain and stepped aside. Damien entered slowly, like he was stepping into a different world. The apartment was small but warm. Soft lighting, a worn couch, toys scattered across the floor, a baby swing in the corner where Elijah sat, his little legs kicking happily. Damien's breath caught. He looked so peaceful, so innocent. Arya closed the door behind him, her arms crossed defensively. You can look, but you can't touch. Damien walked closer, his movements careful, almost reverent. He crouched down in front of the swing, his eyes locked on Elijah. The boy looked up at him with wide, curious eyes. He babbled something unintelligible, his tiny hand reaching out. Without thinking, Damien extended his finger. Elijah grabbed it and held on. Damien's throat tightened, his vision blurred. He's perfect, he whispered. Arya's voice came from behind him, quiet but firm. He is. And he's everything I've lived for this past year. Damien didn't look away from Elijah. Why didn't you tell me? Because you were a stranger, she said simply. The man I married disappeared the moment you decided power mattered more than love. He closed his eyes, the words cutting deeper than any blade. I was trying to build something, he said hoarsely. For us. For our future. You built a prison, Arya replied. And I refused to let my son grow up in one. Elijah tugged on Damien's finger, making a soft sound of delight. Damien looked up at Arya, his expression raw. I want to know him. You can't just show up and demand a place in his life. I'm not demanding, Damien interrupted, his voice breaking. I'm begging. Arya stared at him, stunned. Damien Cross didn't beg. He commanded. He took. He won. But right now, kneeling on the floor of her tiny apartment, holding his son's tiny hand, he looked broken. I don't know how to be a father, he admitted quietly. But I want to learn. I want to try. Arya's eyes shimmered with unshed tears. You don't get to walk back into our lives just because it's convenient now. I know. You hurt me, Damien. You destroyed us. I know. And I won't let you hurt him. I won't, Damien said firmly, his gaze steady. I swear to you, Arya, I won't. She looked at him for a long moment, searching his face for any hint of deception. Finally, she exhaled. 1 visit a week, supervised, here. Relief flooded through him. Thank you. Don't thank me yet, she said coldly. You have to prove you've changed. Not just with words, with action. Damien nodded. I will. Elijah yawned, releasing Damien's finger. Arya moved forward, gently lifting him from the swing. She held him close, protective and fierce. It's time for you to go, she said softly. Damien stood, his heart heavy but filled with something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. He walked to the door, then paused. Arya. She looked at him. I'm sorry, he said. For everything. She didn't respond, just held their son closer. Damien left. But for the first time in years, he didn't feel empty. Damien kept his promise. Every Thursday evening, he arrived at Arya's apartment at exactly 6 o'clock. He never came early. He never stayed late. He followed her rules without question. At first, Arya watched him like a hawk. She barely spoke. She didn't leave the room. She made it clear that every second he spent with Elijah was a privilege she could revoke at any moment. But week by week, something shifted. Damien learned how to hold Elijah without fear, how to make him laugh with silly faces, how to rock him to sleep when he fussed. He learned that Elijah liked soft music, that he giggled when Damien tickled his feet, that his favorite toy was a stuffed lion with one missing ear. And Arya watched. She watched the way Damien's face softened when Elijah smiled at him, the way his hands that had built an empire on ruthlessness, became impossibly gentle when they cradled their son. She hated how much it affected her. One Thursday, Damien arrived with a large bag. Arya raised an eyebrow. What's that? Supplies, Damien said simply. He set the bag down and began pulling things out. Diapers, baby food. A new high chair, clothes. Arya's jaw tightened. I don't need your money. I know, Damien said calmly. But he's my son too. Let me help. This isn't about helping. This is about control. Damien stopped, meeting her eyes. It's not. I promise. She wanted to argue. But the truth was, things were tight. Raising Elijah alone, working from home to stay with him, it was exhausting and expensive. She looked away. Fine, but don't make it a habit. Understood. He continued unpacking. Arya watched him silently, her arms crossed. You're good with him, she admitted quietly. Damien paused, surprised. Thank you. Don't let it go to your head. A faint smile tugged at his lips. The first real one she'd seen in years. Elijah crawled over to Damien, pulling himself up using his pant leg. Damien immediately crouched down, steadying him. Look at you, Damien murmured, his voice full of pride. Getting so strong. Arya's chest tightened. This was dangerous. Watching Damien become a father. Watching him change. Watching the man she once loved emerge from the shadows of the man she'd learned to hate. Why did you do it? She asked suddenly. Damien looked up. Do what? Become what you became. The ruthless businessman. The man who cared more about winning than anything else. Damien's expression darkened. He looked down at Elijah, who was chewing on his finger happily. Because I thought that's what success looked like, he said quietly. I thought if I could build something big enough, strong enough, untouchable, then we'd be safe. Then we'd have everything. We already had everything, Arya whispered. Damien's jaw clenched. I know that now. Silence settled between them. Elijah babbled, breaking the tension. Arya sighed. You should go. It's getting late. Damien nodded, standing. He pressed a soft kiss to Elijah's forehead. See you next week, buddy. As he walked to the door, Arya's voice stopped him. Damien. He turned. She hesitated, then said, You're a good father. The words hung in the air. Damien's throat tightened. I'm trying to be. Arya nodded. That's all I needed to hear. He left. But as the door closed behind him, Arya leaned against it, her heart racing. Because she'd just realized something terrifying. She was starting to forgive him. 3 months passed. Damien's Thursday visits became the center of his week. He rearranged board meetings, canceled business trips, turned down million-dollar deals, all to make sure he never missed a single evening with Elijah. His associates noticed. His business partners whispered. The ruthless Damien Cross, the man who never compromised, was suddenly soft. But he didn't care. For the first time in his life, something mattered more than the empire. Arya noticed too. She'd started letting him stay longer. An extra half hour, then an hour. Sometimes she'd make tea while he played with Elijah on the floor. Sometimes they'd talk. Carefully, cautiously, about small things. The weather, Elijah's milestones, anything but the past. But the past had a way of catching up. It was a Thursday evening when everything changed. Damien arrived at 6 o'clock sharp, as always. But when Arya opened the door, her face was pale. Her hands trembled. What's wrong? He asked immediately. She stepped aside without a word. Sitting on her couch was a man Damien recognized instantly. Victor Kane, one of the most dangerous men in the city. A rival, a predator. Someone Damien had crossed in business years ago. Victor smiled coldly. Damien Cross. What a pleasant surprise. Damien's blood turned to ice. His eyes darted to Arya, then to Elijah, who was playing quietly in his playpen, oblivious. What are you doing here? Damien's voice was deadly calm. Victor stood slowly, adjusting his cufflinks. I came to deliver a message. You've been distracted lately. Soft. People are starting to wonder if the great Damien Cross has lost his edge. Get out. Victor ignored him, his gaze sliding to Arya. Beautiful woman. Beautiful child. It would be a shame if anything happened to them. Damien moved faster than thought. He crossed the room, grabbed Victor by the collar, and slammed him against the wall. Touch them, Damien growled, his voice lethal, and I will erase you from existence. Victor laughed, even with Damien's hand at his throat. There he is, the real Damien Cross. I was starting to think fatherhood had broken you. Arya's voice cut through the tension. Damien, stop. He didn't move. Damien. Her voice was firmer now. Not in front of Elijah. He looked at his son. Elijah was staring at them, his little face confused. Damien released Victor with a shove. Victor straightened his jacket, smirking. Smart woman. She knows what's at stake. He walked toward the door, then paused. You have a choice to make, Cross. Your empire or your family. You can't protect both. He left. The door clicked shut. Silence. Arya's legs gave out. She sank onto the couch, her hands covering her face. Damien knelt in front of her immediately. Are you okay? Did he hurt you? He didn't touch me, she whispered. But he knows, Damien. He knows about Elijah. About us. Damien's jaw clenched. I won't let anything happen to you. You can't promise that. She looked at him, her eyes filled with fear and fury. This is exactly what I was afraid of. Your world, your enemies, and now they know about our son. I'll handle it. How? She demanded. By going back to being the man you were? By starting a war? If that's what it takes. No. Arya stood abruptly. No, Damien. I won't let you drag Elijah into your darkness. He's already in it, Damien said harshly. The moment Victor found out about him, he became a target. The only way to protect him now is to eliminate the threat. Arya's expression crumbled. Then maybe you shouldn't come here anymore. The words hit him like a bullet. Arya, I need to think about what's best for Elijah, she said, her voice breaking. And right now, what's best is keeping him away from your world. Damien stood, his hands clenched into fists. You can't keep me from my son. Watch me. They stared at each other, the space between them filled with years of hurt, fear, and love they couldn't quite bury. Finally, Damien spoke, his voice low and raw. I will fix this. I will make sure you're both safe. And then you can decide if you want me gone. Arya said nothing. Damien walked to Elijah, crouching down. He kissed his son's forehead gently. I love you, he whispered. More than anything. Elijah smiled, reaching for his face. Damien stood and left without another word. But as the door closed behind him, his expression hardened. Victor Kane had made a fatal mistake. He'd threatened Damien's family, and for that, there would be consequences. Damien didn't go home that night. He went to war. Within 48 hours, Victor Kane's operations began to collapse. Shipments were intercepted, bank accounts frozen, business partners suddenly unwilling to return calls. Damien moved like a ghost through the underworld, dismantling Victor's empire piece by piece. He didn't use violence. He didn't need to. He used something far more devastating. Information. Every dirty deal, every bribed official, every skeleton in every closet. Victor had threatened his family. Damien made sure Victor would never threaten anyone again. But while Damien waged his silent war, Arya was falling apart. She couldn't sleep. Every sound outside her door made her jump. Every car that slowed near her building sent her heart racing. She kept Elijah close, barely letting him out of her sight. And she hated that Damien had been right. They weren't safe. Not anymore. On the third night, someone knocked on her door. Aria's blood froze. She grabbed her phone, ready to call the police. "It's me." Damien's voice came through the door. She exhaled shakily and opened it. Damien stood there, exhaustion etched into every line of his face. But his eyes were clear. "It's over," he said simply. "What?" "Victor Kane. He's gone. Not dead," he added quickly, seeing her expression. "But gone. He'll never come near you again." Aria's knees weakened. "How?" "I made sure of it." Damien stepped inside. "You and Elijah are safe now, I promise." Aria stared at him. "At what cost?" Damien looked away. "It doesn't matter." "It does to me." He met her gaze again, and for the first time, she saw something she'd never expected to see in Damien Cross. Vulnerability. "I did what I had to do," he said quietly. "To protect you. Both of you." Aria's eyes filled with tears. "I don't want you to be that man anymore, Damien. The one who solves everything with power and fear." "I don't want to be him either," Damien admitted, his voice breaking. "But I am. And I don't know how to change that." "Yes, you do," Aria whispered. She stepped closer. "You've been changing for months. Every time you hold our son. Every time you choose him over your empire." Damien's throat tightened. "What if it's not enough?" "It is," she said softly. "But you have to choose, Damien. Your old life or this one. You can't have both." Silence filled the apartment. Damien looked past her, to where Elijah slept peacefully in his crib. His son. His heart. Then he looked back at Aria, the woman he'd loved, lost, and found again. "I choose you," he said. "Both of you." Aria's breath caught. "I'll walk away from it all," Damien continued, his voice steady now. "The business, the empire, everything. If that's what it takes to keep you safe, to be the father Elijah deserves, the man you deserve." Tears spilled down Aria's cheeks. "You mean that? I've never meant anything more in my life." She covered her mouth, overwhelmed. Damien stepped closer, his hand reaching out hesitantly. "I know I don't deserve a second chance. I know I hurt you. But if you'll let me, I want to spend the rest of my life making it right." Aria looked at him through her tears. She saw the man she'd married, the one she thought she'd lost forever. "I'm scared," she whispered. "So am I," Damien admitted. "But I'd rather face that fear with you than spend another day without you." Aria closed the distance between them. And for the first time in over a year, she let him hold her. 6 months later, Damien Cross no longer owned an empire. The boardrooms were empty. The penthouse had been sold. The fleet of black cars, the private meetings in shadowed corners, the weight of a criminal underworld on his shoulders, all of it gone. He'd walked away from everything. And in doing so, he'd found everything that truly mattered. Now, Damien lived in a house on the outskirts of the city. Not a mansion, not a monument to wealth and power. Just a home. 2 stories, painted cream with dark green shutters. A front porch with a wooden swing. A backyard with a garden that Aria tended every morning. Her hands in the soil, her face peaceful in the early light. The neighborhood was quiet. Safe. Full of families and laughter, and the kind of ordinary life Damien had once thought was beneath him. Now, he understood it was the only life worth living. Aria stood at the kitchen window, a mug of coffee warming her hands, watching the scene unfolding in the backyard. Damien was pushing Elijah on the swing set they'd built together last month. It had taken 3 weekends, 4 trips to the hardware store, 2 arguments about whether they needed to follow the instructions, and more patience than Damien had ever shown in his previous life. But they'd finished it. Together. Elijah squealed with pure joy, his little legs pumping in the air. "Higher, Daddy! Higher!" Damien laughed, a sound that still caught Arya off guard every time she heard it. Deep, genuine, free. "Any higher and you're going to fly away, buddy." "I want to fly." "Not today. Your mama would ground me for life." Elijah giggled, his dark curls bouncing in the morning sun. He looked so much like Damien. The same intense eyes. The same stubborn set to his jaw. But his laugh, that wild, uninhibited joy, that was all Arya. She smiled, her chest tight with an emotion she'd thought she'd lost forever. Love. Not the naive, untested love of their early marriage, but something deeper. Scarred. Hard-won. Unbreakable. The past 6 months hadn't been easy. There were nights when old wounds reopened. Moments when Arya looked at Damien and remembered the man who'd chosen ambition over her. Days when the fear crept in. What if he regretted leaving his empire? What if this version of him was temporary? But every morning he woke up beside her, made breakfast while Elijah banged spoons on the table, read bedtime stories in silly voices, held her when the nightmares came. He stayed. And slowly, painfully, beautifully, she'd learned to trust him again. The sound of the back door opening pulled Arya from her thoughts. Damien stepped inside, Elijah perched on his shoulders, both of them covered in grass stains and streaked with dirt. "We have a situation," Damien announced. Arya raised an eyebrow. "I can see that. Elijah says he's a dinosaur now, and dinosaurs don't take baths." Elijah roared, a sound that was more adorable than intimidating. "Roar! No bath!" Arya set her coffee down, fighting a smile. "Is that so?" "It's a very serious problem," Damien said, his expression grave. "I've tried negotiating, but he's committed to his dinosaur identity." Arya walked over, reaching up to tickle Elijah's foot. "Well, this dinosaur is very stinky." "Dinosaurs are supposed to be stinky," Elijah protested. "Not in this house," Arya said firmly. She looked up at Damien. "New rule. All dinosaurs must bathe before lunch." Elijah considered this, his little face scrunched in concentration. "Can dinosaurs have bubbles?" "Absolutely." "And toys? All the toys?" Elijah nodded decisively. "Okay, bath time." Damien carefully lifted him down, setting him on his feet. Elijah immediately started stomping toward the bathroom, roaring with each step. Arya watched him go, shaking her head. "When did you get so good at this?" Damien turned to her, his expression softening. "I'm still learning. Every day. You're a natural. I have a good teacher." He stepped closer, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "You taught me everything. How to be patient, how to listen, how to love without trying to control everything." Arya's throat tightened. "You're doing that thing again." "What thing?" "Making me fall in love with you all over again." Damien's smile was slow, warm, and utterly sincere. "Good, that's the plan." From the bathroom, Elijah's voice rang out. "Daddy, the dinosaur is ready." Damien laughed, pressing a quick kiss to Arya's forehead. "Duty calls." She watched him jog toward the bathroom, her heart impossibly full. Later that afternoon, while Elijah napped, Damien found himself in the garage, working on a project he'd been planning for weeks. A wooden toy chest. He'd never built anything with his hands before. In his old life, he'd paid people to handle such things. But now, there was something deeply satisfying about the process. The smell of sawdust. The careful measurements. the slow, deliberate creation of something real, something for his son. The garage door opened. Arya stepped inside, curiosity on her face. "What are you making?" Damien looked up, wiping sweat from his forehead. "A toy chest, for Elijah's room." Arya walked over, running her hand along the smooth wood. "It's beautiful. It's unfinished. It's still beautiful." She looked at him. "You never told me you could build things." "I couldn't," Damien admitted. "I'm learning as I go. YouTube tutorials mostly." Arya laughed softly. "The great Damien Cross, learning from YouTube." "The great Damien Cross is gone," he said quietly. "I'm just Damien now, Elijah's dad, your husband, a guy trying to figure out how to sand wood without taking off a finger." Arya's smile faded into something more tender. She stepped closer, wrapping her arms around him from behind, resting her cheek against his back. "I'm proud of you," she whispered. Damien set down the sandpaper, covering her hands with his. "For what?" "For choosing this. For choosing us. I know it wasn't easy." "It was the easiest decision I ever made," Damien said. "Walking away from that life? That was nothing compared to the thought of losing you again. Losing Elijah. That was impossible." They stood like that for a long moment, wrapped in each other, the afternoon light filtering through the garage window. "Do you miss it?" Arya asked quietly. "Even a little?" Damien didn't answer right away. He thought about the question carefully. "Honestly, no," he said finally. "I thought I would. I thought I'd wake up one day and feel empty. Powerless. Like I'd given up something essential. But you don't?" "But I don't." He turned in her arms, looking down at her. "That world made me feel powerful. But it also made me feel hollow. Like I was constantly chasing something I could never catch. Proving something I could never prove." He cupped her face gently. "This life. Waking up next to you. Watching Elijah grow. Building a toy chest in my garage. This makes me feel full. Whole. Like I finally understand what I was supposed to be chasing all along." Arya's eyes shimmered. "And what's that?" "Home," Damien said simply. "I was chasing home, and I found it. With you." A tear slipped down her cheek. Damien brushed it away with his thumb. "I love you," Arya whispered. "So much it scares me sometimes." "I love you too," Damien said, "and I promise, every single day, I'm going to prove that you made the right choice giving me another chance." She kissed him then, soft and deep and full of promise. When they pulled apart, Damien rested his forehead against hers. "I have something I want to ask you." "What?" "Marry me." Arya blinked, pulling back slightly. "We're already married." "Marry me again," Damien said, his voice steady and sure. "The right way this time. Not because we're young and don't know any better, but because we've been through hell and back. Because we've hurt each other and healed each other. Because I want to stand in front of everyone we love and promise you, again, that I'm yours. Forever." Arya stared at him, her breath catching. "I want Elijah there," Damien continued. "I want him to see us make that promise. I want him to grow up knowing that love isn't perfect, but it's worth fighting for." "Damien, you don't have to answer now," he said quickly. "Think about it. Yes." He froze. "Yes?" Arya laughed through her tears. "Yes, I'll marry you again. 1,000 times yes." Damien's face broke into the widest smile she'd ever seen. He lifted her off her feet, spinning her around the garage as she laughed. When he set her down, he kissed her again. Deeper this time, full of joy and relief and overwhelming love. From the house, they heard a small voice. "Mama? Daddy?" They pulled apart, grinning. We're coming, baby, Arya called. Hand in hand, they walked back into the house. 4 months later, the backyard had been transformed. White lights were strung between the trees, glowing softly in the early evening. Rows of chairs faced a simple wooden arch decorated with flowers. Wildflowers, Arya's favorite. A small group of close friends and family filled the seats, their faces warm with happiness. Soft music played from a speaker hidden among the garden plants. Damien stood beneath the arch, his hands clasped in front of him, his heart racing. He wore a simple gray suit. No tie. No cufflinks worth more than a car. Just clean, honest simplicity. The music changed. Everyone stood. And then Arya appeared at the back of the garden. She wore a simple white dress that fell to her ankles, her hair loose and adorned with small flowers. She carried a bouquet of wildflowers. Purple, yellow, white. She was radiant. But she wasn't alone. Elijah walked beside her, holding her hand, wearing a tiny suit with a bow tie slightly crooked. He took his job very seriously, his little face focused as he carefully scattered flower petals with his free hand. The guests laughed softly, enchanted. Damien's vision blurred. When Arya reached him, Elijah looked up at Damien solemnly. "I brought Mama." "You did a perfect job, buddy," Damien said, his voice thick. Elijah beamed, then toddled over to sit in the front row with Arya's mother, who pulled him onto her lap. Arya stepped forward, her eyes locked on Damien's. "Hi," she whispered. "Hi," he whispered back. The officiant, a close friend, smiled at them both. "We're gathered here today to witness something beautiful. Not a beginning, but a renewal. Not a first promise, but a second chance." Damien barely heard the words. All he could see was Arya. All he could feel was the overwhelming gratitude that she was here, that she'd forgiven him, that she'd chosen him again. "Damien," the officiant said gently, "your vows." Damien took a deep breath. He hadn't written anything down. He'd tried. But every time he put pen to paper, the words felt inadequate. So he spoke from his heart. "Arya," he began, his voice steady, despite the emotion threatening to break through. "I don't have fancy words. I'm not good at this. But I need you to know something." She smiled through tears. "You saved my life," Damien continued. "Not in some dramatic movie way, but in every small, quiet way that matters. You showed me what love looks like when it's real, when it's tested, when it survives." He reached for her hands, holding them gently. "I was lost," he said. "For years I was lost. Chasing things that didn't matter, building walls instead of bridges. And then you came into my life and showed me what home felt like." A tear slipped down Arya's cheek. "I hurt you," Damien said, his voice cracking. "I failed you, and somehow, impossibly, you gave me another chance. You let me be Elijah's father. You let me learn how to be a better man." He paused, his throat tight. "So I'm standing here today to promise you, again, that I will spend every single day of the rest of my life being worthy of that chance. I will choose you. I will choose our family. I will choose love over power, home over empire, us over everything." His voice broke completely on the last word. "I love you, Arya. More than I thought it was possible to love anyone. And I will never, ever stop." Arya was fully crying now, not bothering to wipe the tears away. The officiant turned to her. "Arya, your vows." Arya took a shaky breath, squeezing Damien's hands. "I didn't think we'd get here," she admitted, her voice soft but clear. "I didn't think you could change. I didn't think I could forgive. I didn't think love could survive everything we went through." She smiled through her tears. "But you proved me wrong. Every single day you proved me wrong. You showed up. You tried. You became the man I always knew you could be." She glanced at Elijah, who was watching them with wide, fascinated eyes. "You became the father our son deserves," she continued, "the partner I needed, the home I'd been searching for." She looked back at Damien. "So I'm standing here today to promise you that I will never stop believing in us. I will never stop choosing you. I will love you through the hard days and the easy ones, through doubt and certainty, through every season of our lives." Her voice strengthened. "You are my home, Damien Cross, and I'm so grateful I get to spend forever with you." Damien's composure shattered. He pulled her into his arms, holding her tightly. The officiant laughed softly. "I think we can skip ahead to the important part. Damien, do you take Arya?" "I do," Damien said immediately, not letting her go. "Arya, do you take Damien?" "I do," she said, laughing through tears. "Then, by the power vested in me, I now pronounce you, again, husband and wife. You may kiss your bride, again." Damien pulled back just enough to cup Arya's face, his thumbs brushing away her tears. "I love you," he whispered. "I love you too," she whispered back. And then he kissed her. Deep, tender, full of promise. The small crowd erupted in applause and cheers. Elijah clapped enthusiastically, not entirely sure what was happening, but delighted to be part of it. When Damien and Arya finally pulled apart, both breathless and grinning, Elijah broke free from Arya's mother and ran toward them. "My turn," he announced. Damien scooped him up, and Arya wrapped her arms around both of them. The three of them stood there, under the lights and the flowers, surrounded by love, a family, whole, healed, home. 2 years later. Damien sat on the front porch swing, Elijah, now nearly 4, curled against his side, almost asleep. "Tell me the story again," Elijah mumbled. "Which story?" "The one about you and Mama." Damien smiled, brushing Elijah's curls back gently. "Once upon a time, there was a man who thought he had everything. But really, he had nothing. Because he was mean," Elijah supplied sleepily. "Because he was lost," Damien corrected gently. And then one day, a beautiful, strong woman showed him what really mattered. "Mama, Mama," Damien agreed. And then she showed him something even more important. Me. Damien's chest tightened. "You." And everything changed. The man realized that love was the only thing worth fighting for. So he fought. He changed. And he became the luckiest man in the world. Because he had a family, Elijah said, his voice barely a whisper now. "Because he had a family," Damien echoed. Elijah's breathing evened out. Asleep. Damien held him close, breathing in the scent of baby shampoo and innocence. The screen door opened. Arya stepped out, 2 mugs of tea in her hands. "He's out?" she asked softly. "Out cold." She handed him a mug and settled beside him, her head resting on his shoulder. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars appear one by one. "Happy?" Arya asked eventually. Damien looked at his sleeping son, at his wife, at the home they'd built from the ruins of who they used to be. "More than I ever dreamed possible," he said. Arya smiled. "Good, because there's something I need to tell you." Damien looked down at her, curious. "What?" She took his hand, placing it on her stomach. His breath stopped. "We're having another baby," she whispered. For a moment, Damien couldn't speak, couldn't move, couldn't breathe. And then he was kissing her, holding her, laughing and crying at the same time. "We're having another baby," he repeated, awed. "We're having another baby," she confirmed, laughing through happy tears. Elijah stirred. "What's happening?" You're going to be a big brother, Damien said, his voice thick with emotion. Elijah's eyes went wide. Really? Really? Can I teach the baby about dinosaurs? Arya laughed. Absolutely. Elijah whooped, suddenly very awake, and Damien pulled both him and Arya into his arms. His family, his empire, the only one that mattered. Years later, when people asked Damien Cross if he missed his old life, the power, the wealth, the empire, he would smile and shake his head. I had an empire once, he'd say, but I was alone in it. Now I have something better. What's that? A home, he'd answer simply. A family, love, the things you can't buy or build or take by force. The things you can only earn by being worthy of them. And every night, when he walked through the door of his modest house, where his children ran to greet him, and his wife smiled at him like he was her whole world, he knew he'd made the right choice. He'd lost everything, and gained what truly mattered. The end episode summary. A ruthless billionaire demanded everything in the divorce, until his ex-wife walked into court holding the son he never knew existed. Damien Cross built an empire on power and fear. But when Arya revealed the child he'd never met, every wall he'd built came crashing down. She hid their son to protect him from Damien's dangerous world. He'd been too blind to see he was destroying the only thing worth keeping. Faced with enemies, impossible choices, and a love that refused to die, Damien had to choose. The empire that made him powerful, or the family that made him whole. A story of hidden truths, second chances, and the man who discovered that the greatest empire isn't built on money and power. It's built on love, forgiveness, and coming home. Subscribe for more powerful stories of redemption, love, and family. What would you do if you discovered you had a secret child? Tell us in the comments.